Hello, this is Raymond Gabriel. Welcome to part 2 of the 2D character tutorial. If you haven't watched part 1, you can check it out from the link in the description below. In part 1, we have imported all the character parts, so we are ready now to get into rigging. Let's get right into it. Press Shift and right click on the mesh of the body. To change the position of the 3D cursor, you will see that it has snapped to the plane of the body. Now press Shift A and add in an armature. That will add the first bone in the armature, scale it down a bit, and move it by pressing G and place it right here. This will be the base bone for the armature. Okay, now select the armature, go to this tab here, and in Viewport Display section, check In Front so you can see the bones in front of all the meshes. Then press Tab to go to Edit Mode, select this vertex, then press E to extrude out another bone, and do it one more time for the head. These 3 bones are now a bone chain, meaning that every bone in this chain will control the bones after it. So if I went to pose mode by pressing Ctrl Tab and selected this bone and started rotating it by pressing R, you will see that the 2 bones after it are rotating with it, and if I selected this one and rotated it, the last bone will be rotating with it. Okay, what if I want to start a new bone chain for the arms and the legs? We first need to go back to Edit Mode to add more bones, so press Tab to go to Edit Mode, press Shift and right click on one of the arms. That will change the position of the 3D cursor. Now press Shift A and that will add a new bone separate from the first bone chain. Okay, start moving and rotating this bone like that. Then select this vertex and start extruding out this bone for the lower arm and another one for the hand. Now this is a new bone chain for the right arm. I'll continue adding more bone chains for the other arm and for the legs. So I'm going to fast forward this part. Make sure to make the leg bone chain looking like that. We need this bend right here for the knee, as we will need this later when we add the IK controllers. Now that we've added all the bones, let's set up the relations between these bone chains. I want to be able to control the arm bones if I rotated the upper body. So to do that, I will select these 2 bones, which is the first bone in each bone chain of the arms, and then select the bone I want to be controlling them, which is the upper body. Now press Ctrl P, that should get you the Make Parent menu. In Edit Mode, you will only see these 2 options, Connected or Keep Offset. Connected will move the bones and snap them to the parent bone, like that, but I don't want that. I want them to keep their offset, so I will undo that and I'll choose Keep Offset instead. You will see that there is now a black dashed line appeared right here, which indicates that these bones are now parented to this bone. I will do the same thing with the leg bones and parent them with the base bone. All what's left now is attaching the mesh to the bones. So when we start moving the bones in pose mode, the mesh will be moving with it. In my previous tutorial, I showed you a quick method. Let me show it to you briefly. Go back to Object Mode by pressing Ctrl Tab and select Object Mode. Select everything by pressing A and then select the armature last by holding down Shift and clicking the armature. Now press Ctrl P and choose With Automatic Weights. What will that do is that it will add the influence of all the bones on every part we have for this character. And now if I selected the head mesh, for example, and went to this tab here, you will see you have all the bones added to the vertex group section, which means that all the bones that are listed here is influencing this mesh. Right now I have all the bone names numbered, so I don't really know which one is actually affecting the mesh. So to make things easier, let's go ahead and rename all these bones. Select the armature, press Tab to go to Edit Mode, start selecting the bones, and from this tab, change the name from here. I will do the same thing with all the other bones and rename them quickly. Okay, let's go to the body mesh, for example, and go to this tab. You will see now that all the bone names have changed. Each one of them has a certain amount of influence on the body according to their proximity to the body mesh. So the bones that are closer to the body have more influence on it than the ones that are farther away. You can check out the influence of the bones on the mesh by going to Weight Paint mode. Now I have the body mesh selected. Press Ctrl Tab and then choose Weight Paint. You should see the weights now on the body, but I'm not sure if this is a bug or a feature, but it's not showing up because in the material settings here, the blend mode is set to alpha blend. If I change it to alpha clip, it will show up. So I'll change it to alpha clip for all the other meshes quickly. Now I'll go back to the body mesh, Control Tab and go to weight paint. I can now switch between the bones and see how each one of them is affecting this mesh. You will see some colors appearing. The red color means that this bone is affecting this part of the mesh by 100%. The yellowish green colors means it's affecting by 50%. And the blue colors means it's not affecting this part at all. By using this method, we will have all the bones of the armature in this list for every mesh piece of the character. So I might get the wrong bones influencing the different parts of my character. I solved this problem by moving all the character parts apart from each other as I could in the Y direction, so that only the right bones will have the desired influence. But I want to show you another way to add weights for the bones on the mesh. It might take a bit longer, but it's a much cleaner way than in my previous tutorial, as we will specify exactly which bone will affect each part of this character. First, let's get rid of all the vertex group here for the body mesh by pressing this arrow and then select delete all groups. Now let's select the armature, then select the part we want to reg. Now press Ctrl Tab and choose weight paint. You will notice that the armature is in pose mode and you can select the bones by holding down Ctrl. Make sure you are using the latest version of Blender, which is 2.92 at the moment, as these steps will not work in previous versions. Before you had to disable lock object mode from here to be able to see the armature in pose mode while you are in weight paint mode in the mesh. But it's much easier now. You just select the armature in object mode, then select the mesh, and then switch to weight paint mode. Right now I have the body mesh in weight paint mode, so I'll select the body bones and the head bone by holding down Shift. Then I'll go to weights and select assign automatic from bones. That should add those 3 bones in the vertex group here. And now I'm sure that only these 3 bones are affecting this mesh. You can switch between them by holding down Ctrl and selecting them, and you'll see the influence of each one of them on the mesh. I think the automatic weights are good enough, but just in case you get unwanted weights, you can edit these weights by selecting the bone you want to adjust the weights for, and using the weight brush to paint the weight you want. You can adjust its size by pressing F, and you can change the weight you paint with from here. For example, I can change it to 0 and I will paint with the blue color, or I can change it to 1 and paint with the red color. You can also adjust the weights by selecting vertex select from here or pressing V on your keyboard, and that will allow you to add weights to specific vertices in the mesh. Right now you can see all the vertices in this mesh. I can press A to select them all, or Alt A to deselect them. You can press B for box select and select the vertices that you want. Then from here, you will see that this weight slider appeared. You can adjust this weight and press assign. That will assign the specified weight to the selected vertices. Just make sure you double check which bone is selected, as this is the bone you are adding weights for. Right now I have the head bone selected. I don't want it to affect the body that much, so I'll remove all its influence by pressing A to select all vertices and getting this slider to 0, and then press assign. Then I'll add just a little bit of influence for it with the weight brush. I will make the weight slider here as 0.5 and start painting here underneath the neck. Let's try rotating the head now. To be able to select the bones by holding down Ctrl, you need to disable the vertex select mode first, so press V, then press Ctrl and hold it, then select the head bone. Try rotating it and see the influence. Okay, I think that is good enough. But as you can see, the head is moving and the quiver is moving. That's because they have wrong weights from the bones. Let's try to fix that for the head. So I'll do the same thing, select the head mesh, and from here I'll delete all vertex groups. Now select the armature and then select the head mesh. Ctrl Tab and go to weight paint. Select the head bone only by holding down Ctrl, and then from weights select assign automatic from bones. Now the head bone will appear here in the vertex groups and you will see its influence on the head. Let's make sure that it's affecting all 4 vertices of the head exactly the same. So press V for vertex select, and then press A to select all 4 vertices. Now from here, set the slider to 1, and then press Assign. I will continue doing the same thing with all the character parts. Let's do the left arm. As you can see for this character, this arm is divided into 3 parts: the upper arm, the lower arm, and the fingers. To make things easier, I can make them as one object, so I can add weights to them at the same time. To do that, select them all by holding down Shift, then press Ctrl J. In the vertex groups, you can see all the bones are listed here because we used with automatic weights when we first parented this mesh to the armature. I will get rid of that the same way from this arrow and delete all groups. But if you want to avoid adding them in the first place, in object mode, when you parent the mesh to the armature by pressing Ctrl P, instead of using with automatic weights, just click Armature Deform, and that will parent the mesh to the armature but will not add any vertex groups here. Okay, now select the armature, then select the arm, press Ctrl Tab and go to Weight Paint. As you can see, the vertex group is empty. Let's select the bones we want to influence the arm. Press Ctrl and select the upper arm bone, press Shift and hold it, then select these 2 bones as well. Now press Weights here and assign automatic from bones. That has added these 3 bones right here in the vertex group. I can check the influence by holding down Ctrl and selecting the bones. You will notice that the fingers mesh has a blue color. That's because the fingers mesh was placed a little far away from the hand bone, so when I added the automatic weights from here, it didn't automatically add weights to it, but only added weights to the mesh close to it. If I try to rotate this bone now, it will not move with it. To fix that, we can go to Vertex Select from here and assign weights to the vertices of the fingers. To be able to select the vertices of the fingers faster, you can press Tab to go to Edit Mode, hover over one of the vertices, and then press L. That should select the plane of the fingers. Now if I press Tab again, I will go back to Weight Paint mode. You will see these 4 vertices are still selected. I can go here now, then make sure you have the hand bone selected, then press Assign. You will see it changed to a red color, meaning that the hand bone is now influencing it by 100%. And when I try to rotate it now, it will rotate with it. I'll do the same thing with the other arm and with the legs. So I'll fast forward this part, and after that we will start rigging the bow of this character. Okay, let's add more bones for the bow of this character. Select the armature, press Tab to go to Edit Mode, press Shift and right click the bow to put the 3D cursor here, then press Shift A to add a new bone. Rotate it like that, and then move it and scale it down like that. Select this vertex, then press E to extrude another bone, press E one more time to extrude another bone like that, press Shift and right click here, then press Shift A to add a bone, place it like that. Now select this bone and press Shift D to duplicate it, and rotate it by 180 degrees and put it right here. Select this vertex and put it at the center of the strings like that. Now rotate the view a little in 3D by your scroll mouse button. While selecting this bone vertex, press E to extrude out a bone, then press Y to move it in this direction. What I want to do is make these bones control the strings of the bow and make these 2 bones stretch to this bone. So when I move this bone, these 2 bones will stretch to it. To do that, I have to use constraints, but before that I will rename this bone and name it Target Bone from here. Now to be able to add constraints, you have to be in pose mode, so press Ctrl Tab and that should get you to pose mode. Select this bone and go to the constraints tab right here, and then from here add a new constraint and select Stretch To. From here I need to choose the target bone that this bone will stretch to, so I'll first select the armature, then you will find this bone section appeared. I'll choose the bone I renamed before, target bone. You can search for it and then select it. Now I'll do the same thing with the other bone, but this time I will show you a quicker way to add constraints using a shortcut. Select the target bone, then press Shift and select the bone you want to add the constraint on. Now press Ctrl Shift C and that should get you the Add Constraint with Target menu. Then choose Stretch To. You will see now the constraint added with the target bone already in place. Now if I move the target bone, you will see that it's rotating in its place. That's because it was extruded from this bone, so it's still parented to it. So we first need to unparent it, press tab to go to edit mode, then press Alt P and clear parent. Now go back to pose mode and start moving it, and now it's working. Okay, now that the bones are ready, let's add their influence on the bow mesh itself. It's the same thing as we did before. I will select the armature, then select the bow, press Ctrl Tab and go to weight paint. Press Ctrl to select the first bone, then press Shift and select all the other bones. Notice that I didn't select the target bone, as I don't want the target bone to directly influence the mesh, as it will only be controlling these two bones. Okay, from weights, assign automatic from bones, then let's check the influence of these bones by holding down Ctrl. Okay, I think everything is in order. Now what I want to do is create a master controller for the bow to be able to move it all together if I want. To do that, press tab to go to edit mode. I will make this bone control the whole bow, so I'll parent all bones to it. Select all by holding down Shift, including the target bone, and then select this bone last, then press Ctrl P and choose Keep Offset. Now if I go to pose mode and move this bone, all the bow will be moving with it. Okay, now I want to parent this bone to the hand bone, so when it moves, the bow will move with it. Go to edit mode, select this bone, Shift select the hand bone, Ctrl P, then Keep Offset. I will rig this arrow the same way I did all the other meshes of this character, so I will fast forward this part. Okay, all what's left now is adding IK controllers for the arms and the legs, so let's do that right now. Select the armature and go to edit mode. If you go to this tab, you'll see viewport display. Change the display from octahedral to B-bone. That will switch the shape of the bones, making them look like cubes. This bone display allows us to change the thickness of the bones, which will be very handy in creating the IK controllers. An IK controller, to those who don't understand what it means, IK is short for inverse kinematics. Simply, it's a bone that will control the whole arm or leg, so we don't have to animate all their bone chains one by one. We can certainly do that and select this bone, for example, and rotate it, then select this bone and rotate it to get the arm to the place that we want. Actually, this type of control is called FK, which is short for forward kinematics, meaning every bone will be controlling the bones after it. IK, however, will let you control a bone chain from the last bone in the chain. Let's see how to do that. Select the hand bone, which is the last bone in the arm chain. Press Shift D to duplicate it, then press Escape. That will snap it back to the location of the hand bone. Now press Ctrl Alt S, and that will make it thicker than the hand bone below it. Remember, this is only an option with B-bone display. Okay, now I want this bone to be my IK controller for this arm. Let's rename it to ik-arm.l. The first thing we need to make sure of is that the IK bone have to be unparented from any other bone, just as we did with the target bone of the bow. So press Alt P and choose Clear Parent. Now we need to add the inverse kinematics constraint to the bone that is directly before the IK bone, which in this case is this bone. To add constraint, you need to be in pose mode. So I'll switch to pose mode by pressing Ctrl Tab, and then from the constraints tab, I will add inverse kinematics. And then as we did with the stretch to constraint, we need to add the target bone. In this case, it will be the armature. Then I'll choose the bone to be the ik-arm.l. Okay, let's test that out. Select the IK controller and try to move it, and you'll see that it's controlling the whole armature, not just the arm. To fix that, we just need to go back to the constraint here and change the chain length to 2, which is the number of bones I want the IK bone to be controlling, as I have the lower arm bone and the upper arm bone. Okay, let's test it one more time, and now it's working okay. One more thing to do here is I want the hand bone, which is in the same place as the IK bone, right here, to also be controlled by it. So to do that, I will add a copy rotation constraint to it and choose the IK bone as the target bone. Now when I rotate the IK bone, the hand bone will be rotating with it. I'll continue doing the same steps with the arm and the legs, and I will be using the shortcut to add the constraints faster, which is Ctrl-Shift-C, just as I did with the stretch to constraint before. I forgot to fix the weights for the quiver. As you can see, when I try to move any bone, it's being affected. So let's fix that right now. Now that I'm done rigging the character, let me show you how to animate it. I will just show you the basics as I don't really want to make this video longer than that. Hover with your mouse at the corner here, click and drag up to split the viewport here, and then change this to dope sheet. This is where we can control the animation keyframes. Let's move the bones of the character to the starting pose, go to pose mode and start moving the bones. Press A to select all bones, then press I for the Insert Keyframe menu, then select Location, Rotation, Scale. That will store this data for every bone in this keyframe. Okay, now I'll move this marker ahead in the timeline, then I'll change the pose. You can press Alt R, then Alt G to reset any movement or rotation applied on the bones in pose mode. Now press A again to select all bones, press I, Location, Rotation, Scale. Now when I press the play button, you will see the character is moving from this pose to this pose. If you don't know how to render out your animation, check out my other 2D character tutorial. You can really go crazy with that and create your own animations. I'm sure you might be using this tutorial for your own 2D character, so I'd really like to see the animations you come up with using this technique. You can share them with me on my Discord server or Reddit. I really hope you enjoyed this video and was able to learn from it, and would really appreciate your support through Patreon, as it gives me the freedom to create more free content like this. You will also get all the blend files I create in my tutorials and more. Please leave a like if you like this video so you can reach more people. Also consider subscribing and hit the bell icon if you'd like to see more of this content. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next tutorial.